Hello, Jen here with a layout for the Everyday Inspiration series. This is a series where Christy, Crystal, Daisy, Dolly, Lisa, and myself use a picture from one of our everyday lives and we all use it to inspire a layout. So this month our picture comes from Dolly and it's that gorgeous frosty tree branch that you saw at the beginning, and I'm taking the inspiration pretty literally. As you can see from that pile of pictures I showed you at the beginning, I definitely am not lacking for wintry photos. So I had a few here. You can see I'm kind of tossing between the photos of my boys and those two smaller photos and this one here of the three of us. And basically I end up going with this one because it has that gorgeous tree in the background. The other ones have trees too, but this one definitely has more of the tree branch with the snow on it, and so I felt that that was a really good representation of our inspiration photos. And I just think it's a really cute picture. So before I even began the layout, just knowing what the inspiration piece was, I went ahead and pulled out a whole bunch of cardstock. I've been kind of going through my stash a little bit and just trying to whittle things down, and I have just piles of random cardstock, and so I thought I was going to pull a few pieces out that kind of had that evergreen feel to it. So all of that cardstock was, different shades of blues and greens, and that was sort of my jumping off point. And so knowing that I want to put a dent in this cardstock, I'm going to pretty much stick to only that, no pattern paper on this layout. So I started by just kind of giving myself an idea of where my picture was going to sit, and now I'm going to do a bunch of mixed media. So there's gesso as the first layer, and I used a sponge to soften the edges just because snow has that really pretty fluffy texture, and that's what I wanted. I'm eating mini eggs while I'm doing this. I know it's Valentine's, but I love mini eggs, and I didn't have any kids at home, so I pulled out my little stash, and that's what I'm eating. So I used the sponge just to soften the gesso up and make it look nice and pretty like snow. And then I added the acrylic paint. That's just titanium white acrylic paint. Get ready for a big mess. It's going to happen very soon. So after, there, did you see that? I just blew embossing powder all over the place. My goodness, I made a big mess. But I'm basically just building up layers of white. So the gesso kind of adds one layer and gives one kind of texture and look, and then that acrylic paint gives another layer. It's a little bit more opaque and a little bit smoother. And then the embossing powder, that's an exclusive embossing powder for Wild Whisper Designs. It was created by Emerald Creek, and it has embossing powder in it and flocking. So the plastic melts, and then you have this nice fluffy texture. It just didn't stick down to the white paint very well, so I heated it from behind quite a bit because I knew you kind of need to heat it from behind and get the plastic to start melting. If you do it on top, then you'll burn the flocking. I think flocking is what you say. So I was heating it from behind, but then I knew I needed to kind of just make sure it was all stuck there, and when I used the heat tool on top of the paper, that's when I made my big mess. So it usually works much better than that if you're using embossing ink or something along those lines. But I was just relying on the wet paint to hold it in place, and that didn't work out so well. So after I mostly melted that, then I added some texture paste through that stencil. And now I'm just going to sprinkle on some paint. So I have this trifold mat. It's not even a mat, it's just a chunk of plastic, really. But it was full of paint from just mixing watercolors. And so I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and use that. So I just reconstituted a bunch of the blue and kind of mixed them around and splattered, and then mixed a little more and splattered. And then I added a little bit of green and splattered that. And now here I'm adding a little bit brighter blue. And so I'm just really building up different colors and layers and interest. I added a little bit of, it's not quite a bold black, it's kind of a gray, but that just darkened up that color that was there. And then to get some big splotches, I'm just going to go right ahead and drip that all over my layout. Well, I'm concentrating all on the mixed media, so I don't really go off of that too much. When you look up close and see the layout in person, there are very tiny little splatters all over the page, but they're all mostly concentrated in the white area. And now I'm going to use my gelatos to mix up a darker blue. Because there was green on the palette already, this actually has more of a teal look to it, which is great because it matches the paper that I'm going to be using, the cardstock. And then I was able to really easily wipe away some of the bigger splatters that landed off of the white. So that worked out pretty good. So that is my mixed media portion pretty much. And now, what you don't know is that I sat that to the side and let it dry, and I'll be cleaning off my desk. I literally had to take everything off of my desk, wipe it all up, then get the vacuum and vacuum everything. There was embossing powder everywhere. At least it was white and not some crazy color, but yeah. Anyways, so while that is drying and before I clean up, all I'm doing here is adding some matting behind my picture. So this is the only paper or the only cardstock that I'm going to be adding to the layout. So I have a layer of white. That's the very first mat that I put on, and then I just took my scissors to it and kind of messed it up, and then I added that teal color, and I also will take my scissors and kind of mess that up a little bit too. And then this paper that I put the gesso on, it looks more yellow than it actually is. It's actually a very dark green, almost like a hunter green, but it has a metallic finish on top of it, and because that metallic finish is slightly on the gold side, I think that the light is actually picking up the gold, and so it's making it look a different color than it actually is. It's actually a pretty dark green, so it was the right color. It matches the tree, but I added that gesso around to kind of soften it a little bit, and I think it kind of gives the look of the snowy tree that you see in behind us. So it ended up working out pretty good. But I decided I'm going to do one more layer to really ground my photo. So I'm going to use the black. This is actually the back side of that green paper. And I just felt like because my boys' glasses are so dark, they're black, they have those transitions lenses, so as soon as they go outside in the sun, their glasses turn to sunglasses, so they're quite black. And then the shadows behind us in between the tree branches are quite dark, and my son's coat is black. So I thought that just a really, really thin layer of black as the very last mat on that photo would work really good to kind of ground it. So now go ahead and stick this down. I'm just kind of doing one side at a time because it's a little bit buckled, and so this really helps to kind of smooth it out and flatten it a little bit. It's definitely not perfect, but it's pretty flat. And I'll eat my mini eggs. And now I'm just going to add a bunch of fun texture and stuff in the background. So I'm starting with some embroidery floss and I'm just pulling it apart. I think I pulled it into 3 strands, and then there you can see I'm kind of pulling some of them, so it's thicker in some spots and it's thinner in others. And I have some tulle, and I'm going to put that in the background as well. I like to just squish it up in my hands first, and it wrinkles it and adds a little bit of extra dimension and shadows and things. So it's a little bit dark now. I apologize for that. I put the layout up and had to do some mom things. So I've come back to it now a little bit later on in the evening. And I'm just going to embellish it. So I have these stickers from Close to My Heart. They're not really my style, and I was actually ready to give them away. But this cardstock that I'm using came from there, the grayish one. And I pulled it out of the kit, and I was going to give away all the pattern papers and these stickers and those rhinestone flourishes. And then I thought, you know what? I should at least give them a try and see if I can use any of them before I just give them away. Especially because I feel like these flourishes, this is probably the only time that I would use them is on a layout like this that has all those fun little layers and details kind of tucked in. So I do end up using a couple of them. I used a couple of the stickers, so that's pretty good. They will still probably end up in the giveaway pile, but at least I gave it a good go, and I do really like how they turned out. And that's kind of the point, right? A layout like this, it has all that mixed media in behind it and all the different layers and textures. And so when you're embellishing, you want to be using all different textures and things too. And I'm even putting my embellishments in the different layers. So you can see I'm picking up the tulle and putting it right down onto the cardstock, and some stuff is actually in between the 2 layers of tulle, and some stuff is sitting right on top. So it all adds to kind of building up the layout. So I have those wood buttons, and there were some sparkly hearts from Freckled Fawn, and those white triangle enamel dots, enamel triangles from Freckled Fawn. And now I'm going to put a little bit more thread. I just wanted some darker colors, but I didn't want anything solid, like a die cut or anything like that. So thread is a good way to kind of add some dark color that still kind of feels more airy, and it gives a lot of movement to the layout too. I just felt like the picture was kind of floating there in the center, and having these 2 darker colors really helps to kind of ground it. It gives it a bit of a shelf to sit on. So one is kind of that green color, and then the other one, this one, is a teal. So I think that looked pretty good there, and you can see it just kind of makes the picture feel like it's supposed to be there. I had these giant rhinestones that also came with that Close to My Heart collection. Again, something that I would never use, but they work perfectly on this layout, so I was happy to get them used up. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep that ball rolling. I never use buttons anymore, but I have tons and tons and tons of them. So I added a few little buttons in there, and I think they're just really sweet, and they kind of bring in a little bit more of that blue, kind of bluish gray. So yeah, I like that I did that. And yes, I did take a bit of a risk doing this because I'm putting this right on the photo. But I thought it would be fun to add as the very top layer of the entire layout some really nice clean white snow. And so this is the Faber-Castell whipped spackle, and I think it just adds that really fun, fluffy snow that you see in the picture. So I'm glad I did it, even though it was a bit risky, but it turned out in the end. So, and I can always reprint the photo if I needed to, so I guess it wasn't that much of a risk, but I like the way that turned out. Then I just added a title, Winter Love, and you'll see that in the stills. And that's it. That's my layout. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, leave them for me in the comments below. And be sure to check out all the other ladies. Their links are in the description, and they have some fabulous layouts this month. Until next time, happy scrapping. Bye!